with this quarter's PCAC meeting. So I'll call it to order at 12:07 PM. At this time, we do not have a quorum, so we're going to have to skip over the approval of the agendas and the meeting minutes. And we'll go right down to the chair's report. So I'll start off. As usual, I won't be giving a PCAC chair's report. I'll leave that to Lisa in her executive director's report. She'll pick up that. Going on to the Long Island Railroad Commuter Council Chair's report for March 2024 proved to be a good year for the Long Island Railroad with a total on-time performance of 95.65, the best non-COVID year in their history. It should be noted that this record was achieved without timed connections in Jamaica, so while it doesn't necessarily reflect the commuter's experience, it was impressive nonetheless. There were 316,280 trains operated in 2024, the most ever for a calendar year. Commuter ridership was up 9.6%, and non-commutation ridership was up 19.7% over 2023. And it should be noted that the ridership increases have been continuing into early 2025. While there is still needed improvement, customer satisfaction is trending in the right direction. The overall satisfaction rating in the fall 2024 was 76%, which represents a 6% increase over the spring 2024 survey. Needless to say, we are looking forward to further improvement when the spring 2025 survey is conducted. Grand Central Madison just celebrated its 2-year anniversary, and the originally projected 60% Penn, 40% Grand Central Madison split of commuters coming into Manhattan has finally been achieved. The only negative regarding Grand Central Madison at this point has been the delay in the leasing opening of food service locations or shops at the station, although kiosks are available for limited grab-and-go options. On a positive note, Trax, a location where one can grab an adult beverage, is currently under construction and should be open in the coming months. The Long Island Railroad launched a new pilot program called Convo Access in February, which will provide an app to facilitate an on-demand remote video American Sign Language interpreting service at 7 major stations. And station improvements continue throughout the Long Island Railroad with major renovations underway at both Hollis and Babylon. And that's all I got for the Long Island Railroad. Do you have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Karen, can you use your mic, please? Thank you.
Okay, there we go. I was just curious about what improvements were underway at Hollis and Babylon.
Babylon is basically they're completely redoing the whole station. They're doing it 50%, 50%. Right now, they're in the midst of doing the first half. So if you're traveling to Babylon, only the first 6 cars will stop at the whole platform. The other portion of the platform has been demolished, and I think they've already started to rebuild it. And I believe they're doing some work downstairs as well. Hollis, they're making that handicapped accessible, and I believe they're putting in a new platform there as well, if I'm not mistaken. They're extending the platform.
Shortest in the system, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, and one other quick question.
Yeah.
When will the improvements at Loyalton and Locust Manor be completed?
I don't know for sure. Hold on, we might have that in the notes. I believe that was mentioned at the last commuter council meeting.
I don't have that correct notebook with me, but we'll get that to you. That was Anna Garcia submitted that to us.
Thank you.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll get that email to you later on.
I think we had Sharon, Chris Stewart.
Okay, Sharon?
Is there any possibility of exploring the possibility of having a shuttle train service in the Hampton in the off hours of the regular train schedule?
Actually, they have one now.
South Shore.
Monday through Friday, they run one.
But one a day?
No, it runs back and forth.
It
it's a shuttle.
does?
It runs from Spionk. It starts at Spionk and it runs out to Montauk. Spionk to Montauk and back and forth, and it usually rakes, what's that, like 6 runs a day, I think.
There was just Brian, you have that clip link handy from South Shore?
It's today, it's from Spionk to Montauk. It's the South Shore Commuter Connection. And there was just analysis today from the Long Island Railroad Today publication that I think it has shown increased ridership by over 600% since they restarted it, I believe, last year. So it's aimed at getting people to work from centrally located in Long Island farther east. But I'm not exactly sure about the time of day that it runs, but it's pretty frequent.
So it's like every hour or something, back and forth?
Pretty much. I don't know the exact time it takes to get from Spionk to Montauk. but
Okay.
It's pretty much Spionk to Montauk, and then come back
Back.
Montauk to Spionk, Spionk to Montauk, just back and forth like a yo-yo.
Okay,
Sharon, the Suffolk County also recently redesigned their bus routes so that it's not one bus line that goes for 60 miles, but that they've broken it up into shorter pieces so that it's more reliable.
Yeah.
They're exploring on-demand service in Suffolk also on their bus lines that'll make it so that well, for now they're doing, I think, so that you can track it on your phone and see where it is, but so that you're not literally standing at a bus stop for 40 minutes waiting for a bus on the major corridors. So they're trying to make their bus lines more reliable, but also when the commuter link was shut down for lack of funding a year ago, there was a huge outcry
yeah.
and funding was restored.
Where do we find those schedules? Are they on what's it called again?
It's the South Fork Commuter Connection. We
Thank you.
can send those to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, who's next?
Christopher.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, regarding Hollis, there was supposed to be a press conference that past Friday. But due to the fact that it's supposed to be rescheduled, but we are hearing that stations will be, as Lisa said, it's supposed to be extended. We did hear, excuse me, guys, it's hard to hear. I gotta talk at the same time, sorry. As I was trying to say is and I just lost my train of thought, but the bottom line is there's supposed to be a rescheduled press conference for that station. Sorry about the mess up words I'm saying.
Oh, no, not a problem. And,
And then Stuart.
yeah, Stuart?
For the commutation and non-commutation increases, do we have any information on destinations where people are going?
You mean coming into the city?
I don't know if that's where they're going, but you're saying ridership increased for commuting and not commuting. So do we have any information on destinations? Yeah.
So Stuart,
They may not be going to the terminal. They may be going to other stops. They may
So
be going
at-
to Brooklyn.
at TRC, you had suggested that we look at ridership on subway lines and buses and things like that. So as a larger part of that, we're actually looking at the commuter railroads too.
Okay, so we don't know that now where they're going.
It's harder to tell on the railroads because it's not station to station. You can get on, if you have a monthly ticket, you can get on in Patchogue and get off at Babylon, but have a monthly ticket that goes to Penn Station. So they
Right.
don't track it necessarily.
No, but for non.
For that, for non-commuting, right?
You're buying a
It's-
ticket with a destination.
Well, it's zonal. It's not necessarily destination, right? So, but yeah, so that we're going to look
So
at
even the
that.
zones, yeah, you
Right.
know, like,
I
are
mean,
they
they're-
going to sports venues? Are they going to,
We
So-
will take a look at that as
Yeah,
well.
we're looking at that too.
all right, thank you.
Well, just one note on that. You mentioned sports venues. They did announce that I think we've had the 1 millionth customer that went to UBS Arena taking the Long Island Railroad. So that's been a very busy station, during sporting events or concerts or whatever. Alrighty, no other questions? No, oh. Maddie, you had a question?
Oh, yeah, Jerry, that was a great report that you had. I just want to bring up to the full PCAC's attention.
Maddie, we can't hear you.
Okay, and can you hear me?
You're muted.
Oh,
Oh, it's
okay,
on our end? Okay.
Hold on, Maddie.
okay.
We'll come back to you, Maddie.
I'll wait for the rest of the report.
Yeah, Maddie, we'll come back to you. We're gonna go on to Andrew doing his report, and then we can pick up your question for the Long Island Railroad if you'd like.
Sure. There's a lot to report. Needless to say, we're obviously watching the legal process for congestion pricing because it is so vital to continuing our upgrade of the system, state of good repair, new signals, new accessible stations. I mean, the list goes on. It is in court now. It is going to be heard by Judge Lewis Lyman, who has ruled favorably for the MTA on over 4 previous lawsuits. So that bodes well. After that, it would likely go to the Second Circuit, and who knows where it'll go from there. I don't know that everybody's playing by the rules in this game, so it'll be interesting to see. But ridership is definitely up on subways, buses, and commuter railroads by over 250,000 riders, so that's great. And interestingly, yellow cab drivers are doing a lot better since the start of congestion pricing. As you know, they were really, really hurt by the for-hire car services. They have noticed an uptick in rides, so that bodes well. And over 48.6 million has been raised from congestion pricing already, and comes down to like a net of 30 some odd million, which the MTA says they're right on target to raise the 500 million we need and allow us to bond the 15 billion. So hopefully that continues. You heard from Jerry about Convo. It's obviously on the subways as well in a variety of stations, allowing someone to touch a QR code and get some sign language and have their questions and other issues raised and answered, which is great. And it allows them to chat with an MTA employee and have their questions answered. So that's great. I won't give you the list of stations, but they're all over the place. It's very good. Infrastructure projects, which you're going to hear a lot more of today from our speaker, are going very well. The South Channel Bridge, as you know, has been open so that cargo ships can go in and out of Jamaica Bay, largely to Kennedy Airport with oil deliveries, fuel deliveries, whatever. And the Hamels Y, which connects the Far Rockaway and Rockaway Park branches of the Rockaway line, is being rebuilt, which was so old. So that's all good, and from our reports, it's all on schedule, and the line is still scheduled to reopen near Memorial Day. So that's great news. There are work going on at the Penn access stations in the Bronx, as well as the lines connecting the Hellgate Bridge with New Rochelle, basically. But there's a lot of little river bridges that the line goes over that are also being rebuilt. Who would have known that with all of the Amtrak service that these bridges were conking out? But apparently some of them have. So they are repairing them in a variety of places. So that's really great. You may have heard this on the news, but a baby girl on February 12th was born on the W train. Hopefully she got the name Wendy or something with a W, because that was great. Everybody assisted the transit group, helping her. Everything, the umbilical cord was cut. The baby was doing well. They were both taken to a hospital. Everything turned out wonderful. So New Yorkers do help each other, and that's a great sign of it. You've been hearing about the Easy Pass scam. For those who are using the bridges and tunnels since congestion pricing, you might be asked, you might receive a text. Some of our people have told me they've received one. They do not text you. It is a scam. Do not answer any text you receive about your Easy Pass account, because Easy Pass does not text you or email you. So that has been going, that's lesser now, I think, that people have understood this. We've heard a lot about the Queens bus redesign. It is set, the first phase of which is set to go into effect June 29. The second phase will be August 31. There are some great improvements on it, and there are some not so great things about it, which we've heard from people at both the MTA meetings and our Transit Riders Council meetings. And I asked specifically, once this is put in place, does that mean you can't tinker with it? And I was told, obviously we can tinker with it, and we likely will tinker with it. So that's good news, because once you do something and you see how it works, you may want to alter it in some ways. And they are open to that, which is great. Local 100 of the Transport Workers Union has a new president, John Chiarello, And his famous quote now is, "We will take no crap from management." That is how he was, that is how he wanted to be known when he took the office. So that is fighting words, I guess. You have heard probably Metro North will be the first in the nation to run battery and electric powered locomotives together. This has great promise for not just Metro North, but for the Long Island Railroad as well. What has not been told to us yet is how far it can go under battery power. And we really need to know that to see how effective it can be on various lines of both Metro North and Long Island Railroad. But it will initially go in on the Penn Access line. So that will be interesting to see. There are a lot of new capital plan initiatives, which I'm sure you'll hear more about today. That if you haven't seen it yet, the new passageway from the number 7 platform at Grand Central up to the mezzanine where you can connect to the shuttle, to the 456. It's beautiful. Jerry, Randy, and I got a chance to see it under construction. We were crawling through little holes. There was so much debris around. I mean, it was really amazing, but they have made a beautiful thing out of it. And if you have a chance, go see it. Also, the new way, hopefully, the new way forward on making stations, elevated stations accessible is what was done at the Woodhaven Boulevard J and Z line station, which is one elevator from street to platform. None of this mezzanine shifting, more elevators, more things can go wrong. We hope this is the future. I don't know that every station can be done like this, but a whole host of them can be for sure. And we're just waiting to see what the next batch of elevated stations will be and how they will be undertaken. But the fact is, and you'll hear this from Sean, our speaker today, they are combining stations and capital projects into packages. That means we can get each one of them done more efficiently and more economically. The contractors like these packages, and we certainly do too, because you're getting more for your money, and more contractors are bidding on them, which means we're going to get a better price in that way too. So that is great. Fair Fares is now on Omni. If you're signing up for Fair Fares, you will be definitely given an Omni card. That's the way of the future, and that is now on Fair Fares, which is great. There's a new track inspect pilot program. There have been some issues where tracks are undergoing some degradation, but you don't know it until something terrible happens. But with this new AI system called Track Inspect, they can figure it out before it gets to the worst part and you have a derailment or you have a track fracture or something like that. And that's being put into effect all over the place. I'm hopeful that maybe for our summer field trip, we'll get a chance to ride along and see how the Track Inspect program actually works. I think that would be really interesting, but that's on hold for right now. Also, you may have heard that now there are R211Ts, open gangway R211s on the G line. There's at least two trains. I think more are coming. That's, I guess, an improvement. They haven't actually turned the CBTC on yet, but when they do, you'll see the real improvement because the R211s are made with CBTC in mind. And that's it for now.
Okay. Yeah. Just one thing I wanted to add on to Andrew's, that scam, you don't have to even have a Metro card to get one of those notifications. They're also doing it for the toll by mail. I don't know where they're getting our information from, but they're getting it from someplace.
Imagine if those people put their minds to some good,
Yeah,
because they certainly have some technical skills.
that's for sure.
Don't have anything.
Right.
Alrighty, so we'll start doing,
Chris has a question.
Hello.
yeah, we're gonna start doing,
On the way, I'm here.
no, Randy, right now, the way we're gonna do questions for Andrew.
All right.
Then it'll probably be 12:30 at that time. Sean wanted to give his presentation at 12:30, then we'll go on to your presentation.
Unless Chris is quick. Let's see.
All right, Chris, you have a question for Andrew.
I will be quick. I had attended the R211T on the G and was the first set. The second set ran yesterday, and the next other two will be running next month as it's on the press release. Regarding as Andrew mentioned, the combo, it's been working really well at customer service centers, and Jerry has been working very well on the LIRR with the service ambassadors. And Randy, if you hear me in the other end, it's been working very well in Metro North territory. We just need you guys to please share that information out because we need to increase the outreach. So we can hear all different people from different regions. Thank you. Is that quick, Andrew?
Quick,
Microphone is on.
it is.
Okay, Trudy, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Right, yeah. Just also on the 211, the way the media or some of the media who regularly covers us has been reporting it is that the reason that the 211s were put on the G line is because of the short distance between the much smaller stations. And I don't know who gave them this information, but it's really good. And I hope we do this explaining why we put the specific trains on specific lines. Because G is a short train and this is a short train, people don't have to bunch up in everything because they can walk right through and they can get to where they want to get off. I'm not going to go into all the details about the G line, but it is so, the 211 is so well fitted to the G line. And I just hope that as we get in more, I guess I can ask that question later on, matching up the rolling stock to the specific line and the specific station. Whoever came up with this idea, congrats to them.
Well, the G line ran shorter trains. That's why you had the G train shuffle, they used to call it, because you
Yeah,
had to run to
exactly.
find it.
Yeah, because of the
But,
size of the
but
distance.
the stations are long. I mean, they're not shorter stations. Have you seen the length of Hoyt Schermerhorn, for
No,
instance?
I understand, but it's a shorter line and it
It's a shorter
works
line,
well.
yes.
The way I haven't been on the G line for a long time, but I'm just saying that the way it was reported was kudos to us and that we did the right thing. And whenever we get reported as doing the right thing, I think it should be noted and thank you.
And the G line being the third line to get CBTC, it was obvious that you have to have CBTC ready cars to put on that line.
Well,
And
they didn't go into all those details,
they
as I said.
sorry, let's go on. 'Cause
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you.
I wanted to bring back, piggyback on what he said about Convo. It's been brought to my attention as a, Bronx Advisory Council member that there are a lot of hearing impaired, passengers that need the service. I know you said you didn't want to go through the whole list of where, it is, but it's really important that they try it out. We have, a member that really, really needs it. So where do we find the stations that they are testing it out in? Because I would
Okay, I'll
like to
tell
know.
you. They're testing it out at 161st Street Yankee Stadium, Atlantic Avenue Barclays Center, Times Square, Jackson Heights Roosevelt Avenue, the St. George Station on the Staten Island Railway, obviously Atlantic Terminal on the Long Island Railroad, as well as Babylon, Grand Central Madison, Jamaica, Penn Station, Ronkonkoma on the Long Island Railroad, and then Grand Central, White Plains on Metro North, and Mobile Sales buses and vans, and of course at Stone Street around the corner.
Thank you so
You're
much. I will let them know.
Okay, okay, with no other questions for Andrew, Randy, we're gonna hold off on a second. I see Sean is just getting online here, so I believe he's gonna do his presentation remotely. So Lisa, you wanna set him up?
Sean Fitzpatrick is going to speak to us today, and give us, what we've seen as a great overview on some terrific work the MTA has been doing, construction and design has been doing, in some of the innovative approaches they've been looking at to, further improve the efficiencies and efficient and effective work, toward the capital program, that I think that we'll all really enjoy. How'd that tee you up well, Sean?
Raising expectations. I appreciate it. Yeah.
I mean, maybe you'll even talk about, I don't know, Maxwell's Point. Sorry.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a PCAC meeting if I didn't. So Thank you all for having me. I appreciate, as always, the opportunity to engage and run through. This is I'm going to be presenting to you. You may have seen a very similar version of this if you watched our last board meeting last week. So I'll try to go through quickly and save time for questions. But as Lisa said, it was an attempt to summarize the efforts that MTA Construction and Development has taken over in partnership with our operating agencies over the course of the last 5 years to make capital work better, faster, and cheaper. I mean, it's no secret that the MTA of old had challenges with capital delivery. And projects came in late, came in over budget, and more fundamentally, there was a disconnect between the planning that happened at an individual agency level and the sort of overall picture of what the how that interacted with actual construction planning. And so, we've been thrilled over the course of the last few years to change that in a lot of important ways. So, I'll start by noting, that we do have, obviously this comes at a very critical moment in the sort of history of this agency and in the history of the transit system with congestion pricing moving forward. Thrilled to be moving forward with the projects that will be, paid for with the proceeds from congestion relief. Sort of a collage here of some of them from accessibility projects, state of good repair work, signal modernization. There's a lot of work that's either now in construction or has moved into procurement, even since the program officially went into effect at the beginning of the year. More broadly, since over the course of the last 5 years, we've been able to identify more than $3 billion in savings on our capital work. And I'll get into sort of category by category how we've totted that up. But it's a reflection of the new MTA and of the importance that we've ascribed to being responsible stewards of all public money. And one of the ways that that's reflected is in our upcoming capital plan. So the 2025 to 2029 program is 4% cheaper than the 20 to 24 program when you adjust for inflation. And yet it delivers even more. And this is sort of a representative sort of selection. It's hard to have exact apples to apples in every case. But, from categories like power substations, signals across all agencies, station work, the actual amount of cars we're purchasing, we're doing more in this capital plan, even as the actual dollar figure has decreased. And that's a result of the work that we've done at MTAC&D to improve every part of the capital delivery process. From planning, sort of having an integrated planning group across agencies to develop the right projects and develop them not in silos, but in an integrated way. Contracting, reforming our contracting work in order to be, an owner of choice and be an agency that in the public sector, across our public sector peers, the agency that contractors want to work for and that they are competitive in the way that they work for us, sort of getting rid of that MTA premium of old. Once we have a contractor on board working, to complete safely on time and on budget through changes in our delivery process, having greater accountability, having, sort of integrated sort of project support throughout a project's life cycle. And all across the board, sort of improving our management to be able to have the internal capacity to sort of, make all of these other things happen. So on the planning front, we've been able to identify $750 million worth of savings. And this is in a way, this is the roughest figure in this presentation because we don't often do the sort of full cost estimate of a bad idea that we avoided doing, right? But we've been able to identify, by making smart decisions up front, designing projects right, and sort of picking the right projects to pursue, $750 million worth of savings since 2020. What does that look like? Well, my favorite example is the work that we've done on our accessibility program, across the subway system. So we have, you may have heard us talk about, in the month of February, we opened up a new elevator or actually January, but earlier this year, we opened up a new elevator, a new accessible station at Woodhaven Boulevard on the J and the Z trains. That station had an innovation in it in that we had what we call direct to platform elevator installed. And so the old way the MTA did business, and that we're sort of not unique in this, was that there was an interpretation of ADA code that said that if you want to if you want to make a station accessible, you have to replicate the path of travel that currently exists. And so for customers at Woodhaven Boulevard, sort of before, that meant you took a staircase up to a mezzanine, you transferred it sort of walked along the mezzanine and then took a different staircase up to the platform. And so the traditional way code was interpreted said, if you want to add elevators, you add elevators to replicate that path of travel. You have elevators to the mezzanine, then you have another set of elevators from the mezzanine to the platform. That would have been, in this case, pretty substantially expensive, both because of the literal cost of the elevator, but more importantly, it would have required a lot of complicated structural steel work to sort of make space in a mezzanine that wasn't big enough to have sort of the landing for an elevator integrated into it. And so, both our engineers and our designers here at C&D, in partnership with Camelo Arroyo and our accessibility group, pushed back and said, well, actually, from an accessibility perspective, you would rather have direct access to the platform. You would rather be able to go straight from the street to the platform. That's one fewer elevator that has the risk of breaking down. It's a more direct path of travel. It's an improvement, not a sort of second class status. And so we were able to work with our code officials. Another key innovation that came into place was that we have Omni now. And so, if somebody does get on in the wrong direction, this was another thing that sort of was an understandable part of the way our code interpretation previously existed. If somebody got on in the wrong direction and you could use the stairs, well, you could go down and go back the other way without having to pay again. With Omni, we've been able to replicate that sort of ability to switch sides if you read the map wrong or went the wrong way for customers with disabilities too. And the combination of those factors, along with just a different approach to the way we did business, led us to save $40 million at Woodhaven Boulevard, and we've applied the same principle at 20 more stations, conservatively saving us another $200 million across the ADA program. So that's one key example. Second Avenue Phase 2 was another key example. We previously had identified over $1 billion worth of savings by reusing the existing tunnel, rather than, as sort of a group of engineers about a decade ago had initially planned to sort of try to work around it and demolish it and start from scratch. We were able to sort of reutilize that. On top of that, we've continued aggressively to pursue value engineering and sort of coming up with ways to shave cost off of that project. Over the course of the last year, we identified, while we were waiting sort of for congestion relief to get going and allow us to pursue the project, we were able to identify another $300 million worth of design savings. And then, another example of this that obviously we've been focusing a lot on is our Rockaway Resilience Project to, reconstruct substantial portions of the A and the shuttle train out to the Rockaway Peninsula, dealing with, steel and concrete that over the course of the last, several decades has, been battered by storms and by, just the day-to-day impact of being a subway line over the ocean. Which there aren't too many examples of around the world. What one sort of unique or sort of less sort of remarked upon factor of this is that there's actually multiple projects that were bundled together to create that Rockaway Resilience Project, including what you see here is this is the sort of steel structure, the Hamels Y, that is the cause of, or the cause of sort of greatest concern. But the bridge that you can see here in the sort of back or in the midground here is what's called the South Channel Bridge. It also had, infrastructure dating back to the 1950s or earlier, was, more frequently breaking down. We are gut renovating, replacing all the mechanical and electrical equipment for that bridge. Under the old MTA, believe it or not, these were sort of treated as separate projects and would have been, done separately, perhaps concurrent, sort of consecutively, so that you would have had another 10 plus weeks of outages in order to get this work done. Instead, we were able to bundle it together, meaning that one outage allows us to get all of this work done along the line at the same time, saving a substantial amount of money, but even more importantly, saving a substantial amount of time for our customers. So those are examples of better planning up front and how that has saved us. Contracting itself is another key obvious aspect of this. We've simplified our contracts and part of, one of the ways that bundling helps is that it's allowed us to have our bids come in 7%, more than $1 billion under estimate since 2020. And let's talk about some examples of that. Accessibility is, I'll return to, this is a photo at Church Avenue where in part of our largest accessibility bundle ever, with 13 new stations being constructed under one contract and actually a public-private partnership to boot. That's allowed us to increase the pace of ADA work 4 times since the sort of pre-C&D way of doing business. We're getting 4 times as many stations into construction than we did before. And it saved us money too. We have almost $250 million worth of savings on bids on our ADA projects since we've started this new approach in 2020. Signal modernization, another critical example of the sort of work we're doing in order to, both deal with key state of good repair issues, replacing signals that often date to the Franklin Roosevelt administration, and also, in addition to replacing that aging and sort of increasingly vulnerable equipment, also upgrade the system to new computer-based, communications-based train control that allows us to run trains more safely, more closely together, and more quickly. We have, been working on over the course of the last 5 years, been able to, scale up our investment on that significantly, but we've also continued to refine the project itself to take advantage of new technology like developments in GPS and 5G technology to, remove more and more of the redundant old equipment, and simplify the specifications for what we're asking the industry to do. And as a result of that, our G-Train project, which is currently in construction, is coming in nearly 50% cheaper per mile than even the previous projects that we had worked on. That's a key example of where we're able to change the way we set up our contracting structure to not be so prescriptive, let the industry innovate, and it's paying real benefits for our customers. Park Avenue Viaduct is another project you've probably heard us talk a fair amount about, but for good reason. This is the elevated structure that Metro North trains, 98% of them cross when they get into Manhattan. 98% of essentially all east of Hudson service goes over this viaduct on the way into Grand Central. What we did here was an example of how we were able to put design build and sort of the innovation that provides to really, really good use. And we worked closely with the contracting community and came up with, in partnership with our contractor, came up with a proposal that rather than trying to do this project piecemeal, sort of 1 3-day weekend after another over the course of years, built this sort of incredible gantry structure that has allowed us to, while maintaining service on the sort of 2 adjacent tracks, pre-build the new structures underneath here, cast and have in place the new top structure. And over the course of weekends, we were able to replace 8 blocks of the viaduct on one side last year, with a total of, my Metro North colleagues let me know the other day, a total of 2 trains delayed and 0 trains canceled over the course of the fall of last year, even as we replaced 8 blocks of structure that dates back to the 1890s. This is a great example of work that is, we couldn't have done this with the old tools that we had at our disposal. This contractor had a bid that was slightly higher than their nearest competitor in terms of the actual contract cost, because the sort of construction of this gantry, impacted their price. However, when you take into account the cost of the outages, the cost of time, the sort of multiple additional years, this project has saved us almost $100 million and 4 years on this work. Which meant that the fact that we were able to use what's called best value determination and take into account not just the literal dollars and cents of a proposal, but its whole impact on our budget has been enormously helpful, both for the bottom line and obviously for our customers. So, and better delivery, this is another key sort of area of focus. This is talking about once we have a contract awarded, how do we manage to budget and sort of bring costs down even after we have a contract in place. And since 2020, we've saved more than $750 million. Our projects that have been sort of started and completed since 2020 are coming in on average about 14% under budget. And that's a result of, innovation that we've been able to work through with our contractors, as well as sort of having more accountability, both for our contractors and for our staff, managing this work. A great example of this is the Grand Concourse structural repairs on the B and the D line in the Bronx. This is a great example where we have an excellent project executive who was put in place, and this is a more traditional design bid build project. What we were able to do, thanks to the leadership of this project executive, was deal with what is really the most difficult problem we face on our work, which is access. It's very, very hard to get personnel and materials safely to the right of way without it having massive impacts on service and very expensive impacts on sort of the need for work trains and flaggers and all of that. What this project CEO came up with was, working with DOT, we were able to create direct access from the street below, essentially punched a hole in the Grand Concourse with partnership from our friends at DOT. That allowed us to deliver this project on time, under budget. And in fact, it came in so far under budget, we were able to plow some of that money straight back in and get more work done, meaning that we'll be able to sort of rely on the structure that holds up the Grand Concourse in the Bronx and obviously keeps our train system running for decades to come. Another smaller project, but one with just as innovative of an approach, and another sort of result of us working very closely with our contractor, was the Cherry Valley Bridge out on Long Island. This was a sort of problematic bridge that needed to be reconstructed. Our traditional way of doing business would have required, sort of building the new bridge in place, and it would have had extensive outages and extensive impacts also on sort of vehicular traffic below. A contractor came up with a proposal to build it off-site, sort of have a new engineering approach, and that is going to both saved us $7 million in construction and is also going to be easier to maintain for the railroad in the long run. And then finally, it talked about the Grand Central train shed. This is the critical sort of structure that holds up East Midtown and allows our Metro North trains to fan out into Grand Central. Through a public-private partnership with JP Morgan Chase, we've been able to deliver this project in concert with construction they were doing on their new headquarters building. That partnership and the way it's been managed has saved us $25 million plus. And we were able to turn that money right into the design for the next phase that JP Morgan is actually also interested in working with us on. And that's just a critical example of us being able to accelerate this sort of generational investment that needs to happen, and sort of working smartly to make sure it can. So, and finally, better management. This is sort of some of our program-wide investments. A key example is our insurance program, our owner-controlled insurance program, where thanks to the safe work record we've put together and some of our, just more business-like approach, we've been able to save over $400 million on insurance over the course of the last 5 years. So that's sort of all work we've done looking backwards. Looking forwards to what the 25 to 29 plan is, I'll just go over briefly some of the ways that we're looking to sort of build on this success. And this is how we sort of have created that process by which the capital plan is able to be 4% cheaper, even while delivering a lot more. One example is we are sort of taking a step in the planning department, going even further back in project creation to integrate in needs. We've heard us talk about the Hudson Line's resilience needs and the need to protect the Hudson Line against the twin impacts of climate change and sea level rise on the one hand, and sort of heavy flash flooding and the mudslides and other sort of risks that can bring on the sort of land side. That project is being put together to integrate in state of good repair needs at the same time, and make sure that as we do that work, we are, going to a place once rather than multiple times. And that'll make our projects just a lot more efficient and a lot more cost effective. That's the same thing is true as we continue to scale up our bundling approach for the subway system and actually across the agencies. This is an example where, on the Nostrand line, the 2 and the 5 in central Brooklyn, this historically would have been 4 separate projects. We would have had an ADA project, we would have had station components, we would have had an escalator replacement project, we would have had structural work. Instead, we are putting this and 10 other, at least 10 other places across the subway system, putting it all together in one place to allow us to really maximize the benefit of every single outage we take and save money, sort of breaking down some of the traditional sort of silos that have made work less efficient in the past. All across our delivery, we're looking to improve accountability and have, we're constantly looking to increase our data, both internally as well as, what we can share publicly and sort of, we provide an incredible amount of data. MTA has more than 150 data sets on open data. In some ways we have, I don't want to say too much, it's all good, but we need to catch up in terms of the tools that allow people to find what they're actually looking for and interpret it. And that's a key focus of the next 5 years for us. And across our management system, we're going to, the key is to continue to attract and improve talent. And there's been a lot of discussion about public service, a lot of it negative in recent years or in recent weeks. We know that none of this happens unless we have an excellent in-house team of engineers and managers and workers to get this work done. And so, this is a photo of our trainee class where we bring in sort of the best and the brightest from straight out of engineering school to work across our agency. We're going to continue to scale programs like that up so that we can bring folk, attract and retain talent and reduce our reliance on consultants going forward. So that's the roadshow. Appreciate your time and attention as always, and happy to take a few questions.
Okay, Sean, I would like to start with the first question. It was an excellent presentation. Have you given this presentation in Albany to our elected officials? Because I keep hearing, and it drives me crazy when I see these presentations, but I right out in my neighborhood, I got a state senator and I got a state assemblyman, and all they want is MTA needs to have, an audit, and they're wasting money and this and that and the other thing. And I think if they saw a presentation like this, it would blow their mind. But I'm just wondering, are you getting that presentation up to our assemblymen and our state senators?
Yeah, it's an important point, and one that the answer is yes. Actually, Jamie and I spent Monday and Tuesday of this week up in Albany, meeting with legislators and sort of and explaining the results we found. And I think there were very, very positive conversations. Our team in Albany is constantly reinforcing this message, and we're eager to meet with any and everyone. I will say, we're open to figuring out how to, make sure that folks can trust but verify, so to speak, and work with the legislature on that front. I think we've had very good conversations, and I think the message is starting to stick. But we appreciate your continued advocacy and work, sort of trying to spread the gospel, and we'll continue to try to do our part.
Okay. I might, after this meeting, I might send you the names of a couple of people you might want to
Appreciate
check
that,
in with, who are unfortunately at this point still non-believers. But like we keep trying to pound, this is the new MTA. This isn't your father's MTA. It's a whole different ballgame. And now that I've said my piece, we'll get down to other questions. Britt?
Sure. Thanks, Sean. Wondering on the subject of bundling things together, is East New York and Broadway Junction something that's on C&D's radar to bundle a bunch of the work there, specifically with potentially rebuilding the LIRR station and the future IBX, as well as the current improvements at Broadway Junction? And if C&D were able to achieve these kinds of value engineering savings that you've seen on Second Avenue subway, would that open the opportunity to reevaluating some assumptions about where to place an IBX station there, and potentially revisiting an IBX station at Broadway Junction itself?
It's a great question, and one that we have spent a fair amount of time thinking about here. I'll say, first of all, the Broadway Junction ADA project is in itself actually a significant bundle of both the accessibility improvements and also a substantial amount of state of good repair work at the subway station. So that project's in construction. That's going to continue to move forward. What we have been looking at is precisely what you were saying, is how do you sort of comprehensively view how to make both the state of good repair and accessibility needs at the Long Island Railroad Station, as well as the Atlantic Avenue L train station that is sort of right there as well. We've been doing a deep dive on the engineering side to figure out whether or not any of those improvements could be integrated, not just bundled together, but actually sort of integrate some of the infrastructure itself, so you don't need to build, more elevators than would otherwise be necessary. So that's something we don't have a conclusion on that yet, but we're taking a serious look, and that includes an evaluation of the location of the Interborough Express station there, and we are taking a serious look at whether or not, in combination with some of these improvements to the railroad station, that could open up a more cost-effective means of getting the IBX station north of Atlantic Avenue, which would obviously have a lot of benefits in terms of just access to the surrounding neighborhood. So yeah, it's a great question. That is precisely a place where we are looking to apply some of these lessons learned.
Okay, hey, thank you, Sean. And I should have mentioned it earlier. This is Britt's first meeting here for PCAC. He's the Long Island Railroad Commuter Council's voice from Brooklyn now, so welcome aboard. Okay, so what you're gonna write down the line, you stole it. All right, so Chris, you're up.
Hey, Sean, it's good to see you again. Sean, I might do an Andrew Albert moment here. I know he's looking at me strangely, but I'm looking at your page 21. Just for the record, you know that Church Avenue is ADA accessible, as well as Brooklyn College Flatbush Avenue. Because some of those stations, since they already exist with accessibility and everything there. But at the same time, also, what I'm seeing on the future accessibility, I have met elected officials up in Albany the same time when Lisa was up there. And I agree with Jerry, because there was an assemblywoman from Riverhead never knew that Q existed. So it's not just Capitol we have to educate them. We need to let them know who is MTA accessibility also, because it felt like I was talking to a wall, but not true. But I had to be educating them all. And I think there are times we're going to have to continue educating a lot of our elected officials there. But Sean, when you mentioned Woodhaven Boulevard, and I know Rockaway Boulevard is around that corner, not far from there, also getting accessibility as well. Is that station's going to be similar like Woodhaven Boulevard? Because the community was asking that question as well.
That's a great question. If you give me a moment, I will see if I can get my list of whether that was a station that we were able to apply that to. But we're trying to apply it sort of everywhere we can. I don't see Rockaway Boulevard on the list, but I'll follow up if I find something different.
Thank you.
All right, Sharon.
You mentioned the partnership with JP Morgan. How does that work? What do they get out of it? And and is that a potential opportunity to partner with other organizations like that?
It's a great question and an important one. So the way it worked there was, JP Morgan was looking to build a new, reconstruct its headquarters building. And there's a fair amount, even as the commercial real estate market has some challenges, there's a fair amount of construction happening in and around our train shed. And so they approached us and said, well, okay, we're going to be doing a lot of work right next to the train shed. And the last thing we want is for us to finish our brand new building and for you to come in a couple of years later and have to rip up the street and do your construction work. So shouldn't we find a way to work together? And so we came up with an agreement by which their contractor, same contractor sort of constructing the skyscraper, was able to do the work sort of on our behalf and on JP Morgan's behalf. They made a contribution and as a result, the project was delivered much more efficiently than had it been two separate projects between the building construction and the train shed reconstruction. JP Morgan is interested, as a significant real estate holder in the area. They're interested in expanding that partnership, and we think there's an opportunity for other sort of real estate groups, especially in the train shed area, to partner with us. This is a model we're open to throughout the city, though, and we sort of have a transit-oriented development team that exists in order for us to try to put together opportunities to partner with the private sector to come up with win-wins like this.
Okay, thank you, Sean. I believe Lisa has a question.
I do. Thank you. I haven't been out to see the new elevator yet, to see the direct access, but I'm looking forward to that. I know Randy had we're talking about this earlier as well. So for those of us who have not yet seen it, when you go from street level up to platform level, and it is direct access to the platform, how do you tap in and out? And you said something like sort of in the next breath about, well, so therefore, if somebody needs to just transfer back to go to the other side, it's not a big deal with Omni. But not, so is those two
Yeah.
separate thoughts, or is that the same thought? Does it go, is it a center running platform and you can go, it goes there on a mezzanine? And and I'm not being facetious here, but is that something that can work at on the 7 at that station I named earlier?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the way it works at Woodhaven Boulevard is that there is, and this will vary a little bit from location to location, but at Woodhaven Boulevard there was room at the platform level to put in a fare control area. And so the elevator is in the free zone, we call it, and then you get up there and there was room to install a fare control area and a couple turnstiles and a accessible gate at the platform level.
Going in both directions?
In both directions, that's right.
Okay.
And in terms of that ability to switch directions, if you read your map wrong, there's an Omni validator that you can tap as you go to exit there that essentially gives you a free transfer just into the other side of the station. And so it's marked as such. We have something similar actually at Metropolitan Lorimer to allow folks to transfer between the G and the L train, where it was going to prove infeasible really to have a direct connection within the paid zone.
Right.
The question about whether this would apply at Metsville, it's a great question. Let me, we'll take a look at it. There's the infrastructure, as you know, at that location and down onto Roosevelt below is
Yeah.
incredibly complex.
And
So
all along the 7 line, I'm just thinking, because if you have to do one side or the other, it's just so challenging.
yeah, and
that
the
way.
and the sort of the parks infrastructure and the connection to city. Anyway, that's about as complex a location as exists.
Yeah.
But it's certainly a tool that we're looking to apply in a lot of different locations. And so I'm sure it would be something that some level of sort of creativity will be needed as we go to make that station accessible, whenever we do ultimately deliver the funding there.
Thank you.
Okay, Jason, you have a question?
Hey Sean, Jason Anthony, the Transit Guru. I've been seeing the Secretary of Transportation posting on social media and bashing the Empire State. In other words, our Empire State, and regarding our beloved agency, quote unquote, mismanaging. How will your department respond to US DOT regarding managing projects like accessibility, project renovation, and things of that nature? Because they're portraying us as quote unquote evils, but we want to do things the correct way and investing, not losing federal dollars.
Yeah, from our perspective, the most important thing is that we just continue to do the work and get things done, more efficiently than ever, that we continue to pursue these sort of cost saving opportunities and ultimately the proof is in the pudding. And so that's how we're going to continue to have a sort of business-like approach to all this, even as some of the sort of craziness in the headlines can prevent that from being a distraction from the important work of rebuilding the system.
Quick suggestion, could we do something like the governor did? Like something like creative, putting pictures of certain projects and show and blast it up on social media and say, hey, this is what we're doing. Because I love the newsletters that you guys publish every week, and I subscribe to them. And I thank you guys for doing that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're trying to be as creative as we can to get this message out in as many different forms as possible. Yeah, and if folks, I suspect that PCAC is reasonably well represented on our This Week in Construction mailing list, but if you haven't yet, you can go to mta.info/thisweek, and we do have, Mitch Schwartz and the whole team here at CND Public Affairs is putting a lot of work into telling the story in a lot more granular detail about some of these construction successes and challenges. And so appreciate the kind words on that front.
Okay, thank you so much for the presentation, Sean, and for fielding our questions.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much, sir. All right, so with no other questions, well, I have a quorum before people start drifting off. We don't have a quorum yet?
No.
Counting the people that are on?
Yep.
Cause you got,
Yeah,
and we got Larry, we got Rosalind.
Larry doesn't count.
Oh, Larry doesn't count. I got Rosalind. We need 14?
We needed 14, we had 12 with Karen.
All right, so moving down to Randy's Metro North Chairs Report.
Oh, I'm okay. Hi. You hear me? I couldn't see. It was too small. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, we can hear you, Randy.
Okay, great. So in November of last year, we had an on-time performance for Metro North, which broke 98.35%, and it just got better at the end of the year. And Metro North has introduced its sixth specially not painted but decorated wrapped locomotive to honor the 1900s, early 1900s paint scheme of the New Haven Railroad, New York, New Haven, and Hartford Railroad. So there's 6 of them. The others you've seen already. First was the Metro North original one from 40 years ago. Penn Central, New York Central, a special one for honoring the employees. And guy sitting next to me has his picture on that locomotive. What's number 214?
Yeah,
218.
I'm not sure the number.
What was the other? What did I miss?
I have found my picture on both sides of it.
Yeah, it's the same. It's just wrapped
Right.
differently. And then we have with Penn Central I missed.
And as a former New Haven Railroad employee for many years ago, I certainly appreciate the most recent locomotive wrapped in the former New Haven color scheme.
So the latest news on equipment is that Metro North is going to be getting the battery locomotives, which Jerry mentioned earlier, and be interesting to see them come. Actually, it's also for the Penn Station Access project to begin, and it's still scheduled for 2027. The latest newsletter came out in the recent days, so you can go online to see it if you don't already have it. Metro North's president, Kathy Rinaldi, is retiring at the end of this month, and she will be succeeded by Justin Vonashek, who's the current executive vice president. She had over 30 years of service, worked at the MTA headquarters. She was a general counsel there, I believe, and then she was at the Long Island Railroad. And so she's had a very nice and wonderful career. And so we wish her luck on her retirement. And it's just a lot of stuff here that you already heard. So I'm not going to take up any more time. I'll yield back my time.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Randy regarding Metro North? Okay, Jason?
Hey, Randy. When you mention on-time performance, does that include west of Hudson?
You know it doesn't. You know it doesn't. It's in the 90s. It's not great. There are constantly delays there. It's just the nature of the lines and the fact that it's a one-track railroad from a lot of it, and not enough passing sidings where you don't have that on the east of Hudson line. So yeah, it does not. It's totally separate, and they don't advertise it, but they do publish it.
Because Randy, the other day, a certain elected official that represents Orange County, he wants to disband Metro North to serving that part of Orange County?
No, actually, the legislation that is there is for them to secede from the MTA. We had this back in the 1980s. The Orange, Rockland, Putnam, and Dutchess counties were given permission by the state legislature to secede from the MTA, but it would have been a very costly thing for them. They would have had to pay Metro North for all the equipment that they bought with the local monies that the counties contributed to it. And in the end, nobody wound up doing it. So this is just like resurrecting something that happened 20-something years ago, 30 years ago. And I just don't think it's going anywhere. I think they're doing it just some people who I've discussed this with think they're just doing it to highlight the inequities of how west of Hudson and east of Hudson are treated.
Okay, Trudy.
You just mentioned about Kathy Rinaldi and retiring, and it was such a joy to work with her. I'm wondering, I know that the Governor Kathy sent a citation to leader, but maybe if we could just send something or make a motion or something to thank her for her many years of service, not only with Metro. I know that I'm going back to my old days when I represented everything, but going back to that she represented Long Island Railroad, worked so closely with us. If it would be appropriate, or maybe I need to make a motion to just send her a letter or a citation or something, thanking her for her many years of service and working with us, the PCAC.
Lisa, is that something we can do or?
Not without a quorum.
We don't have a quorum, so we can't actually take any action, which
Well,
is unfortunate.
For
but-
future reference.
But yeah, sure. No, so I have sent her,
That's why I'm
but yeah,
putting it, that's why
absolutely.
I'm making the statement.
Yeah,
That when it is
yeah.
appropriate, the whole
Mhm.
PCAC thanks Kathy for her.
Yep, we can send her something. I think Randy will be our ambassador, right? At that, for that. As you know, when you are somebody who's leaving an office after a long time, the last thing you want is a lot of things, right? So I think
Well,
that if we
but-
give her good, nice words,
For us,
and a
just
PCAC pin,
even a letter,
that might
believe
be,
me, I'm looking through all the things that I have acquired over the
right,
years.
exactly.
I know, but it's still nice
No, absolutely.
that we remember her in one, maybe we can just write a letter.
We can, Randy can be our ambassador at, when he goes to her farewell.
Well, maybe
Shindig.
Randy can have a
Say-
letter from us,
Yep,
official
he
or
can do that.
unofficial,
Yep.
or something signed
happy
by
to do
us
that.
as
Yep,
individuals.
he just said, sure.
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted it on the record
There's
that,
no, everything's on the record.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. And,
But we can't take any actions.
and Randy is going to a retirement dinner, so he will definitely carry our message to her. I don't think we'll do as
Thank
well
you.
as the MTA and the governor did, though. I mean, she got some nice gifts, at the board.
well,
meeting.
when it is appropriate, we'll
Yeah.
put something, maybe at the next meeting and we'll have a quorum. We can put something in writing that
right.
she can have from, or maybe, Randy, if you can take along one of those, PCAC pins or something. I don't know if
Yep.
she ever got one of those.
Yes, we'll do
And
that.
with a little
Yep.
note that says, thank you.
And yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
we-
say, and we'll say something at the next board meeting, which will probably be her last also.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
All righty, you're welcome. No further questions. We'll go on to Lisa's executive director's report.
Thank you. I think I'm gonna rename this the Executive Director and Staff Report because I'm nobody without the people who do the work. So I want to thank everybody for everything that you guys do every day, except for Jessica, who's flying through the air to a beach right now. But no, seriously, just when you watch us, thank you for everything too. PCAC has been incredibly busy. This is I would say this is silly season in Albany, but it's kind of always silly season in Albany. But the budget is budget fever is really ramping up. for reals, as they say. It is due out on, or due to be finalized on April 1st, which is so appropriate. But as you look backwards, the Assembly and the Senate each put together what's known as their one House bills, which combine all of the great ideas that have been put together in each of those houses as one package that they then work together to negotiate with the governor into a final budget. And we expect that the Assembly will be on Monday and the Senate thereabouts. So Jack, our Albany pusher, whisperer, has been doggedly determined to really move forward with the proposals and the efforts, the key issues that we've been talking about really for years. And I think that we've got a lot of bipartisan support that really looks great for the senior disabled Medicare eligible riders, including from Long Island legislators who Brian's been in touch with and spoken about to some of the families of riders who have been particularly concerned that their family members are being costed out of being able to go to work in the morning. So Jack has been really talking up and meeting with folks, and we've got bill numbers for just about all 5 of our key budget proposals going forward, which is great. And we're hopeful to see those in the one houses. We're continuing to pursue our Rider Representation Act, which would allow our board members to have not just a voice, but a vote to allow them to participate and count towards quorums, which they currently do not. So similar to our struggles, the MTA committees and boards also have struggles meeting quorums and doing their business. And they also cannot chair committees or make a motion, right? So some of the proposals that we have are or second a motion, are so common sense. And when we talk about the senior disabled Medicare eligible rider fair proposal, some of the electeds we talk to say, well, that's just so silly. It's like, yeah, well, you'd think that our members could just say, oh, I'd like to, but they can't, because they just simply cannot raise their hands and make a motion or second a motion. So that's continuing apace on its own, as is our effort to revise the LIRCC authorization that would allow one name instead of 3 for each vacancy, because it's challenging, to say the least, to get 3 names for each vacancy, and we've got a lot of vacancies on LIRCC in particular. So we're pursuing those. Sean's presentation on the capital plan talked about all of the work that's going in and all of the work that's being done to really change the way the MTA does business in its construction and its design and its approach. But what we really also need to do is find a way to change the approach and how the MTA's capital program is funded. Right now, every 5 years, every 4 years, it's as though everybody is just caught by surprise that there's this giant capital program that needs to be funded. So Kara and team have put together a great list of 24 and growing ideas for how to fund the capital program. We think that eventually we'll have one for each $1 billion hole of the whole. That's on our website at pcac.org. And they total over almost $1 trillion, right? $750 billion. So, some are as easy as, well, just, 1% of the state budget each year should be dedicated to the MTA's capital program, or 1% or 2%, to things that are a little more complicated. And several electeds, when we were up a few weeks ago, said, well, why isn't mine in there? So those are being added on as well. There are a lot of ideas, and there's a lot of fingers being pointed about who's responsible for coming up with the actual plan to do it. So the next few weeks will be very, very interesting. The a large part of the work that has been done in terms of the fare proposals, the budget proposals that are related to the fares are around fares. And we've talked about that, increasing the eligibility to 200% of the federal poverty level, something that's continuing to go, continuing to pursue. Kara went to the council speakers, her state of the city yesterday, not her other announcement, where she talked about the importance of increasing that. She may have misquoted the number, but she did. Her intent was very clear that she is intent on pursuing that to 200% of the federal poverty level. We'd also like to see that moved to, the commuter railroads within the city ticket weekly, a mid-kid family fare on the Long Island Railroad across the system. And again, those efforts are continuing. And Stuart, as you probably know, there is a hearing with social services on Monday, March 17th, that with the city council. I'm not sure if your agency participates in that one or not, but we're going to be talking about fares on that day. Our interns' works are continuing. Henry's been working on an amazing report that we should be ready to talk about. We'll definitely be ready to talk about the next PCAC, but in the next few weeks. And many of you saw what Benji wrote about in his City of Yes work. And Benji is now working with Kara to update our fares maps to show eligibility and how that would, where people live and how that is juxtaposed near train stations, particularly railroad stations, but also subway stations. Did I forget anything? Jack, I'm going to go down the line too.
I just wanted an excuse to use the fun mic.
Yeah.
We're also, in addition to the Long Island Railroad Commuter Council legislation that would lower the requirements for filling the number of nominees for filling vacancies, we're working on other changes to the authorizing legislation that would broaden the set of elected officials who are allowed to make recommendations, really in an effort not to have to fill the councils where there are empty seats, like on
Like
like
LRC.
honestly, yeah, LARCC being the most of them, and broadly just making it easier to fill the councils and for the councils to conduct business. And
Yeah.
that's it, I think.
Carrie, anything you'd like to add?
No, I think you covered everything. Just
Brian?
wanted to continue with the capital plan.
I'd just add that, with congestion pricing, obviously, we've been continuing to trumpet the success of the program since its implementation. And, there's good new data coming out almost every week that is worth talking about. And
Use a different term, Brian.
Yeah, I was going to say not trumpet.
yeah, fair enough. Anyway, of the 50 or so press mentions that we've had so far this year, about half of them have unsurprisingly been on the program and its successes so far, and expect that to continue.
Thank you. And to that end, Trudy, we're working on the letter that you raised at our TRC meeting. Trudy just asked that we reiterate our support for congestion pricing, and particularly in light of the March 21st date to that US DOT arbitrarily decided they wanted the plug pulled.
That we absolutely oppose that or any other dates.
Yes,
but
thank you.
Mentioning their,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Rick, I see you. You may not see me looking at you, but I see you. I just want to say congrats on reaching your fundraising goal. Rick Horan, who had once been almost so close to being a member, but then Melinda went and became DA, has been spearheading Queens Link, and you got not just funding, but then raised money. So we heard in our visits to electeds, I don't know, I feel like, well, Jack's been up there more than I have, but I feel like I spent a couple weeks up there myself. I heard from so many people the importance of Queenslink and asking where we stood on that. So it was a pleasant conversation to have.
Well, wonderful. Thanks. I don't know if you want me to give you a quick update on what's going on, or if you,
Yeah,
we
we got
could
the
do
time.
that at a future meeting if that's more appropriate.
2 minutes.
Okay.
Elevator speed.
Well, we got $400,000 from the US DOT's Reconnecting Community Program. And this is exactly the kind of project that that was established for, to right wrongs of past government decisions that have disconnected communities, often communities of color, that have suffered hardship since then. And that's exactly what happened in 1962 when the city shut down this rail line. So it's totally appropriate that this should be studied for reactivation and to try to quantify what benefits would result. Unfortunately, that very same program allocated almost $118 million to build a park on that very same right of way whose only purpose is to keep those disconnected communities disconnected. Until we pause this Queensway Park project, we're never going to see the wrongs in the past righted. So we're trying to get objective, transparent information on the economic benefits, environmental benefits, and the transit equity that will make a strong case for pausing the park project and actually creating a combined rail and trail project. Queens deserves that. This is not a theoretical need for better transportation. Everyone knows that it's a transit desert and we need it now. So any support that the PCAC can provide would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Rick, why don't you share with me what you have put together so far?
In terms of funding?
No, in terms of that information that you have about the equity, the economic benefit, and all of those things that you mentioned.
Oh, well, that's the funding for the for this grant is to be applied to a three-part study: the economic, environmental, and quality of life / transit equity.
But let's
and
talk
in fact,
offline.
we think that's a common sense thing that the MTA should be doing on all multi-billion-dollar capital projects. Is to make sure that these projects are worth building, and we think every whenever the public is spending this amount of money, we should be sure it's for a good thing. And certainly in terms of return on investment, it'll be a lot easier to find funding for these projects, even the billion-dollar projects, when we can prove that there's a cost benefit and they'll pay for themselves in a short period of time. So unfortunately,
that
those are
sounds
not
good. Let's talk offline, because I think we just hit our 2 minutes. So
sorry.
let us talk offline, because I think that we can definitely add value to the conversation.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. Carl, you just posted something, but we don't have the chat if you want to. Oh, wait. Oh, Carl, thanks. You just sent the link. Thank you. The Queen's link.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alrighty, you done, Lisa?
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions for Lisa? Rick?
I'd just like to add that analysis of a infill station in Woodhaven in complement to Queenslink would be very helpful.
All righty. Any other questions for Lisa?
Oh, yeah, right. Sorry, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, hi, everyone. So, as you may have heard, the MTA capital plan includes 60 new accessible subway stations, and there is a survey that's currently live about the remaining 30. 30 already have been named in the plan, but there are 30 that have been unnamed that are open for public input. There's a survey live right now where people can submit suggested stations that they would like to see accessible. And we are thinking of doing a letter where we suggest on behalf of all PCAC members, additional stations that we would like to see. And so around the table, you may see some colorful Post-it notes. We're asking if anyone in the room has suggestions for individual subway stations they'd like to see made accessible. If you could write them down.
Subway,
The 60 is just subway,
Yeah, 68 subway.
not just subway.
but
This
it is
60
just
is
subway.
subway.
Okay.
This particular suggestion is for subways. Of course, if there are other agencies that you'd like to be, if you'd like to suggest other stations, it wouldn't be in this particular letter, but we can also take that back.
No need to mention Metz Willis Point. Lisa's got
Yes.
that covered.
Yeah.
You wanna tell people?
Yes, Sharon?
Thank you, Jerry.
In the chat if they're-
Yes,
Can you
and
put that on?
people online, you can submit options in the chat as well. We'll take that back. Thank you.
Sharon?
I tried to fill out this survey online and I don't think it actually went through. I had trouble with it. But one of the questions I had was, it only allowed you to deal with certain stations that were named in the survey. In other words, I wanted to propose 59th and Lex, and it wasn't an option.
Because that's already being made accessible.
Is it already being?
It's on the list.
Okay, but it was very confusing.
So that's why if you write them down on a brightly colored piece of paper, right up to 3. And then we'll take them back, we'll compare them against the list that's already a list. So
Okay.
that that isn't an issue. And then we'll put together a letter and we'll submit it. And Christopher?
Yeah, Chris.
It doesn't help to submit 100 stations online.
No, I wasn't gonna say that,
Okay.
but thank you for saying it anyway, for the record, because everybody else in Zoom land should know that too. But no, what I was saying is to answer her question, and I want to thank Carlos for saying it, because as I said to some people the other day, some of the stations as Lisa mentioned, those stations are already going at this moment, they're on the list. Secondly is we have been, just to let everyone know, and just to let Sharon know, there was a couple of days ago, the thing was down because it went overloaded again, which is a good sign because the numbers are been going up. So we do want to say to everyone, thank you for sending them out. And Lisa, I'm glad Jerry did say Metz Wills Point because that's actually the highest number right now. And there's another station, it's also been mentioned very high. It is actually the Bronx.
Don't be like tilting everybody's numbers here, names here.
I didn't say names. I'm just saying certain two stations.
We have,
Lisa,
sir?
oh,
Oh, no, we had somebody back here who hasn't spoken yet.
well, this is on.
My name is David Moog. Just to make a note that for the past 2 years, I've been trying to apply for a membership for the Queens Member Board for the New York City Transit, the TRC, and the LIRCC. I've not got any responses back from the Borough President's office on that.
Okay,
I've been trying for 2 years for an appointment.
all right. Well, thank you for
We
coming.
appreciate that.
Thank you for coming today and we'll follow up with them.
Lisa,
By the way, if somebody's writing down stations, please list the trains that serve that station so there won't be any confusion because several stations have multiple names.
Lisa or Andrew, either of you, you know that my own station, 79th and Lex, which was 77th and Lex, I'm sorry, I go where I live. 77th and Lex has been turned down because and I have brought it up personally. I'm just wondering, because they say there is too much hard rock there and they can't get through. And Andrew, I've spoken to you about this at length. Is it worthwhile to put in again a station that's been
Yes.
abjectly turned down?
Let them know there's a demand.
Well, there's a demand. I am demand, no, people talk to me about it every,
We'll put it in.
so they're
so
like starting
write it down.
fresh? They're like starting fresh or,
Don't know, Judy. We'll look it up.
okay, we'll put it in again.
Okay.
Thank you.
All righty, any other questions? Going once, going twice? All right, does anybody have any old business they wanted to bring up? Chris?
Since it's old and it's really, since everyone's here, just to remind everyone, March 16th is the 4th-year anniversary of Edith Prentice's death. There are times we do, since it lands on a Sunday, it is, since we have the elevator opening, since the elevator is working now, thank God, and the street naming, just everyone, why are you giving me a look like I did something wrong?
Forgot about my date.
You're not, let's not go that direction, please. Let's focus on these right now. Don't scare me. The bottom line is, it is celebrating her 4th-year anniversary, and just so everyone know, Edith's elevator is back on, and the plaque is on the mezzanine level, not on the street level. We do want to thank Demetrius and the team to make sure the plaque was safe, and I did want to make that promise that I was going to say this at the PCAC meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any old business? Does anyone have any new business they want to bring up?
Wait a minute, I just looked at the minutes from the last meeting and I'm wondering if there's been anything about being able to get, contact to get the wiring for cell phones and whatever. I'm trying to look at the way we worded it in the last meeting, but that we can get cell service in the tunnels as they're doing. I'm just looking to see how we worded it here. That's why.
Hold on, I think we got an answer for you.
They've mentioned that as something they're pursuing as a public-private partnership where
Here, I'll put it exactly as it is about improving cell phone service in the subway tunnels as they get wired.
Trudy, I should tell you that as soon as they did the Times Square Grand Central Shuttle, which was the first line that's now totally done, if you want to call it a long line, but it's, they mentioned that the next ones they're looking at are the Lexington line. That's one of the next ones they're looking at, but it takes time.
Yes, everything takes time,
It does.
but that's next on the whole Lex.
So,
Kara?
sorry to interrupt, as Jack had just mentioned, so they mentioned at a recent board meeting that they're looking at ways for this to be completely free to the MTA by essentially letting, I think it's Bolton and some of the other wireless companies use the network as their name as like advertising, and then they provide the service to the MTA for free. So I'm not entirely sure of where that will be the case, but they're looking at expanding it around the entire subway system and ways for it to be low or no cost for the MTA.
Well, Baldwin already has, because I know in the station, while I'm waiting for a train that sometimes is late, like this morning, that I can get service in the station at East 77th Street, and it says Baldwin,
Right, but
so,
that's not in
so
the
we're already
tunnels.
doing
The
that, but that
stations are
isn't
wired.
taking us in the tunnels.
Correct.
Stations are wired.
Yeah, okay.
On the, I also saw an article that on the LIRR side, they're looking for a similar model to help with some of the dead zones that are when you're farther out. Yeah, pretty cool.
Very helpful.
There's some dead spots on the Long Island.
Yeah.
apparently.
No, there are a lot of dead spots. but-
Even if you have a booster.
Yeah.
Sharon.
All right, Sharon, you have something? Yeah, go ahead. You can do this.
On behalf of some of the Metro North riders, one of the trains broke down. We had to drive to Southeast for the connection, which meant we had to park at Southeast, although we had WASA permits. And there has to be some kind of dispensation with LAS parking so that the people who had to do that aren't penalized and have to pay the weekly parking because there's no permits in service in Southeast. And just if the issue arises that some of us are penalized for parking, can there be some kind of negotiation or discussion with LAS about being lenient about that?
Can you follow up with us if that
Yeah, I will.
happens, and we'll follow up with them?
Okay, whoops, couple more. Okay, anything else? Okay, going once, going twice. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
We
Alright.
can't make a motion because there's no quorum.
Well, we get, all right, so the meeting still has to be adjourned, so we're adjourned, seeing no opposition. We're
So Our,
adjourned.
our next PCAC meeting will be in June. That's when, our chairs rotate,
The changing of the guard.
the changing of the guard. So it's really, really important that we have a quorum. And if you cannot make the meeting in person, please give us your alternate location, publicly accessible alternate location.
Yeah, we just missed by what?
Two.
Two members? We had. Yeah. We had nine.
That made 12. All right, thank you.
Bye.